Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Tuesday Brewsday. This one is going to be an arena deck, best of one, so we don't have a sideboard. I think it's very easy to throw a sideboard in this list. Your traditional anti-cards like Lava Coil and Experimental Frenzy could easily go in the sideboard. There'll be a few other cards I think could make the list in the sideboard, but since it's just going to be an arena brew, it's just going to be best of one. And this is my take on the Divine Visitation deck. Divine Visitation is a powerful card against the right matchups. I wouldn't actually call this deck more of a Divine Visitation rather than just a red-white tokens or a Boros token based deck. Has some pretty good matchups versus the arena field at the moment. It does a very good job of clogging up the board versus the red decks. It can go above and beyond what Golgari can push out. You still are very vulnerable to Fein Finality, but Fein Finality isn't 100% backbreaking like it is with other Boros or mono white lists. It also does a very good job of beating the other Boros and mono white list by going over the top, and Divine Visitation can be one of those cards that if you do end up drawing one of your two copies and the board has stalled, this will unstall that board quite quickly, with all of your tokens becoming 4/4 white angel creature tokens. This deck's also extremely good versus most of the Jeskai control decks. It does a better job recovering versus Deafening Clarions for sure. Same thing with, I would say, against either just the black Surveil decks, whether it be Grixis or Dimir. This deck just doesn't fold like a Ritual of Soot. So that is my reasons for liking to play this deck. Mainly, it's just better against the mirror. And at least at Platinum, I would say the most you'll go up against, the archetype you'll go up against the most is either Boros or Mono White, which I consider the same thing. And having a deck that can compete with them, and actually have a deck that can compete better against some of the decks that traditionally Boros or Mono White has struggles against, I think is a smart move too. So let's just go over the deck tech with this deck. We're going to start with the only one drops being the Hunted Witness and the Legion's Landing. That's one of the big difference between this and other Boros ones, is the other Boros decks have a lot more one drops, and that's why they're very susceptible to Deafening Clarions. They're very susceptible to Ritual of Soots, all those type of cards. Our two drop slot will have Adanto Vanguard and Goblin Instigator. I've had the Tocatli Honor Guard in this slot. If I do worry about Golgari, I will put Tocatli Honor Guard back in. I probably should over the Goblin Instigator because you don't want both, because the Tocatli Honor Guard and the Goblin Instigator are non-bow, meaning they're a non-combo. It means it will shut off your own Instigator. But I just think that in a Heroic Reinforcements deck, Goblin Instigator works a lot better than Tocatli Honor Guard. It also can give you a 4/4 Angel off Divine Visitation. This is the card, though. The Tocatli Honor Guard versus Goblin Instigator debate here. I switch back and forth very often, feeling like recently, like especially today, I played it against Golgari. I think that the Tocatli Honor Guard is a much better position card right now in the current meta. It also does shut off like the against mirror matchups when they run the Elephant. The Venerated locks it on. It can shut that down, which can be one of the tricky cards for you to beat in the mirror matchup. Adanto Vanguard is just still one of the better cards in the meta at the moment. It gives you some game versus the control because it's very aggressive, doesn't die to anything that red puts out, and it also survives Ritual of Soot. It does die against the fungal, can't remember the fungal card is, -1/-1 and a Sapperling. It also dies to the Moment of Craving and the -2/-2 to all creatures. So keep that in mind with the Adanto Vanguard. It still is worthy in this deck though, because we do want some early pressure, and this is our early pressure. It also is a card that does combo with the Mavren. This is the last card that I put in my deck, Mavren Dusk Apostle, as it's a 2/2 that can put in a 1/1. Feels like your 5th Legion Warboss. Again, those cards are going to turn into angels if you have Divine Visitation out. And it just seems like a decent little curve with a Legion's Landing into Adanto Vanguard into Mavren. And then you have another token that comes out immediately off Adanto Vanguard. It is one of the weaker cards in this deck. Don't feel bad about replacing Mavren with something like a 3rd Ajani, or, I mean, there's plenty of other cards at that point that it can be replaced with. Legion Warboss is a 4 of. This is why this deck's very good at recovering from board wipes, is then if you get your board wiped, you'll have Hunted Witness usually coming back, Legion Landing that can create tokens, and then something like Legion Warboss that just comes back and creates 2 creatures immediately. Same thing with History of Benalia, very aggressive card that has to be answered or it will take over the game. On to our 4-drop slot, we have 4 Heroic Reinforcements. This card is just insanely good in the meta. It can push through Golgari decks, and other Boros decks, other mono white decks quite handily, and we are definitely packing a deck that utilizes heroic reinforcements better than most. Some decks do like to have flood out the board with a bunch of 1-drops and heroic reinforcements. However, this one, all of our cards are usually going to get more than just one card out with them, and so the heroic reinforcements is just going to do exponentially more in this deck than other decks. Ajani is also very good in this deck by putting counters and returning creatures, returning Goblin Instigators, Adanto Vanguards is something you use every now and again. Hardly ever get like 100 Witness back, but it's usually just putting the counters on the creatures, and they continue to be bigger and bigger threats. Games I've been able to outclass Mono Green and Golgari just with Ajani, continue to pump up like Adanto Vanguards and whatnot to bigger and bigger and bigger. It's also got a nice little combo with Legion Warboss by putting a counter on Legion Warboss, and then Legion Warboss can attack and can actually put a counter on something more relevant than a Goblin token at that point. You can throw it on a History of Benalia token to make it a 3/3, or you can put it on a Goblin that's already had a token put on it from Legion Warboss from the turn before. Divine Visitation, I think we talked enough about this. One of the greatest combos in this deck is heroic reinforcements with the Divine Visitation. That leads to 2 4/4 angels that become 5/5 with haste and vigilance that attack in that turn. So oftentimes after a board wipe, it's Divine Visitation. You run out heroic reinforcements, you attack in for 10 and have 2 big beefy 4/4 blockers back. Now the hidden gem that I don't know why more people are not playing in this deck. I've seen lists with Divine Visitation running Lava Coil, and I think that this is a much better card in the deck. This is Response to Resurgence. It still kills most of the cards that Lava Coil kills. I understand it doesn't exile them, and that can be an issue versus a few creatures, especially the 4/3 flying Phoenix. However, Response to Resurgence is the upside with Resurgence is huge, especially in those mirror matchups, especially against control, to give an additional attack phase with an already beefy board. History of Benalia has created 2 tokens. Legion Warboss might have created a bunch of things. There are plenty of matchups with, like, I've had 2 Legion Warboss. You get the extra trigger off the Legion Warboss by creating another. So if you read over at Legion Warboss, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. You get 2 combats, that's 2 tokens, and they have First Strike and Vigilance from the Resurgence. So that comes into play very, very well in the mirror matchup. It's also not a bad card in any sort of matchup, like a control matchup where they've are thinking they can take 2 hits and they actually can't, because you have even something like 2 Adanto Vanguards out. That's an additional 6 damage off of Resurgence. Other than that, though, the land base is pretty straightforward, a 4/4/4/11 split, so that leaves us with 23 lands, which is exactly where I want to be in this particular. I was having a flooding issue. This is one of the problems with Arena. Arena is geared towards decks with very, very low to the ground curves. You want a deck that has like a 1-2-3 curve, or you want something to manipulate at the top of your library. So you might notice the meta is a little bit different here on Arena than it is in Paper Magic. Sideboards, that's a whole different can of worms that you'll get me ranting about talking about how I think there should be the competitive format being best of 3, because a lot of decks require sideboards to hate them out, like Teferi Fog or Mono Red. Otherwise, they can just run pretty rampant. That's why you don't see Teferi Fog or Mono Red that often in the paper scene, because they're easily hated out. Golgari switches to incredible matchups versus both of them in games 2 and 3. However, game 1 is very, very, very good in those type of decks' favor. But the thing that really frustrates me at Arena is mid-range without any sort of cantrip / top of the library manipulation is basically unplayable in Arena the way the algorithm works. So we do not have a traditional shuffler. We don't have a random shuffler. What Arena does in Best of 1 is it tries to give a hand, opening starting hand, that can cast enough cards and play enough lands. So I've noticed with like anything under 26, it tries to give you 2 land hands, and if you do run 26, it will give you the 3 land hands, but many mid-range decks do not want 26 lands, because then that leaves you open to the land flooding susceptibility later on. We're talking about turn 7, turn 8, turn 9. All those are going to start drawing way more lands because you had to start out with a low land count. And I mean, with an average even 3 or 2 that you're getting from the Arena Shuffler, then that means there's 23 to 21 lands left in your deck, and at that point you're at about 50% land draws per turn, and you really start to flood. And that's what I've noticed. It's not the same as MTGO, it's not the same as best of 3, it's not the same as any other of these online games or paper games that I've played. I've got many decks that have 24, 25 lands in them. Your average hand will have 2. You never see 5 land hands, you never see 6 land hands, you never see 1 land hands, you always see 2 or 3. And again, some decks are very good at that because they have ops and they have chart of courses and they have ways to manipulate the top of their library through explore, and it really, really helps those decks. It also really helps those decks that just don't even care about having their 4th, 5th, 6th land drop. If they can just go turn 1, drop a card, turn 2, drop 2 cards, turn 3, maybe if they missed a land drop, they can still drop their 2 drop, and if they did hit their land drop, hit their Benelish Marshal, and you can see it just allows these mono white and mono reds to curve better than they usually would without having to worry about those 5 and 6 land hands that sometimes they can get stuck with. So I don't know. I think a lot of these things need to be changed for this to be legitimate as a competitive format. However, I mean, that's an entire rant for another day, and we're already 10 minutes into this video, and I think people want to see the gameplay. So all in all, I'm still enjoying Arena. It's much better than MTGO. I'd still rather invest in like something that is clean, it has some potential, rather than invest in something that the software is so old and archaic and it's a dying and the leadership is so tone deaf. They don't. There's so many times I've reached out and say, hey, can you please fix this card? I want to play it in a deck. Nope, don't care. It's on our low priority because they just don't feel like it. I don't know. Maybe they're just too underwhelmed or overwhelmed with the amount of stuff they have to fix from MTGO because the client is so clunky. Anyway, let's stop ranting. Let's get to the games. Right now, I've been dancing around Platinum 2 and Platinum 3. I got all the way up to 1 ticky mark away from Mythic, and then went into a series of bad matchups and bad draws and frustration. I am not a very responsible gamer as far as not being susceptible to tilt. If I start tilting, I'll start playing janky, wacky decks and keeping bad hands and being very, very salty, and that, of course, affects the overall ability to grind the matchups. So anyway, I think that we're at right now is I think I'm at Platinum 2. Wanted to just get to Mythic and stop there. I highly do not suggest that you grind. If you were a Platinum player and you'd spend the time, you'll already be profitable if you're a Platinum player. Just doing the tournaments, the events is what they are. This is keepable hand, by the way. And if so you'd be profitable. You'd get your 4 or 5 wins, which is profitable in these events, and you get the rewards from the cards. You'd be cracking the vault a lot quicker. The end rewards for this season is pitiful, especially going from gold to platinum and platinum to mythic. It's not even really worth it at that point. Anyway, let's concentrate on the game. We're going to start off here with I'm just going to go with a Legion's Landing. I think it's more powerful than Hunted Witnesses, and that way we can go turn 2 Goblin Instigator over the Adanto Vanguard, because then that can flip the Legion's Landing, and we can have that 3rd additional land. So that would be, yeah, it still is my play, because we don't really have to worry about too much. This could be a Negate or a Spell Pierce. A lot of people are not playing Essence Scatter at the moment, so I'm actually just going to attack first, and then we'll throw out the... I don't know actually here, because Deafening Clarion could come out. Do you know what? I think I might change... No, we want to go for a flip. And we want to go for a flip on the Legion's Landing. Again, we're really open to the Deafening Clarion. But if my opponent wants to use it basically on 2 cards, more like 1.5, that's okay. So it's opt-opt. Again, this is exactly what I'm saying. These are the type of decks that have to be played on MTG Arena, is deck manipulation, so that you don't flood out, or you can get those lands early, because this is exactly what happens. Look, it gave the opponent probably a 2 land hand and 2 ops. See, again, this is good. We get to go to combat. We get to flip the Legion's Landing, hopefully, unless my opponent has a response, to stop that Legion Landing from flipping. Nope, it flips. So we're in pretty good shape against... This is going to be a Jeskai control, most likely. This could be a Jeskai Drake deck, or it could be a hybrid of the 2. This flips over. We don't have to worry about anything getting countered. Legion Warboss, I think, is a mistake here. I think the best play, because we're probably going to be staring down a Deafening Clarion, would be to just throw out a Hunted Witness, and then throw out an Adanto Vanguard. And that way, we at least have 4 power that is surviving the Deafening Clarion. We've already done the job of flipping So there's Revitalize. It kind of sets us back, but not too hard. Settle the Wreckage could also come out here. We'll play around Settle the Wreckage. That's another good draw here. So let's go with the Legion Warboss. And we're very susceptible to Deafening Clarion now. And then we'll go to combat. And we're not going to attack in with the Adanto Vanguard or the Hunted Witness. So these are going to stay back. And if my opponent does want to use the Settle the Wreckage, then we get 4 lands out of the mix. And we only lose, you know, we don't really lose anything. So our opponent kind of played into it. I guess my opponent really doesn't have a better play than this. We'll resolve this, get 4 creatures. We still have the cards that are the most valuable cards here. We'll go ahead and take this action and hit 3 planes, and we'll go get another mountain. So that hopefully will help us with not flooding. And then I'm actually going to cast this Hunted Witness as well, because again, it's another card that survives quite nicely from a Deafening Clarion that I'm most likely going to see this turn. This could be Teferi. Teferi would be pretty weak to throw out right now. We're in pretty good shape. This Response to Resurgence is also a pretty ideal card later on. I mean, our opponent is definitely looking at lethal. Okay, so the Clarion does work. We get a lot of value back, and we can do some neat little tricks here as well. So, Instigator, we need to find a heroic intervention. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a Adanto, and then we'll just cast a Legion's Landing so we can flip the other one. And that way we can flip another Legion's Landing at end of turn. I'm not going to cast anything else. We're just going to attack in here and force my opponent to kind of be on the heel here. Yeah, his Instigator is a good one to run with Heroic Reinforcements. We have enough mana to do Heroic Reinforcements and Goblin Instigator, so I just like to wait late turn. Opponent has to throw away a Niv Mizzet. That's a good sign. And Teferi is quite weak here. Do we have lethal? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do have lethal. So, barring a counterspell here with Resurgence, we have lethal. So, whoops, we're not in end of combat. And opponent also does not have the... Does not have the Settle the Wreckage. So, if this gets countered, it gets countered. I didn't do the math here with if I need to put that in play tapped or not. It doesn't matter. We're going to do Resurgence. So, creatures I control gain Vigilance first strike. If this is not countered, yep, this is lethal. Alright, so we'll go to attacks and swing everything at my opponent. I guess my opponent could still have a Shock that gets... Or Revitalize. Shock or Revitalize actually does get my opponent out of this. But still in pretty bad shape. And my opponent's being smart if they are holding the Revitalize up. Because that gives them an out. They've used one Revitalize. Alright, there was the other Revitalize. Can't really play around it. Goes to 1, and I'd hate to get permanently... Yeah, take extra turns into Oblivion here, but my opponent has 43 cards in the deck. This is going to be tough. Settle the Wreckage is really one of the only cards left. So double Revitalize. My opponent gains 6 life. It's one of the reasons why this deck is successful. It's one of the reasons why you'll see a lot more of these type cards than most lists. Again, if you're looking at paper lists, they're not going to be running a full play set of Revitalizes in the main. Usually, that's pretty fair to say. And all the other draw spells, it's because Arena demands it to be able to hit those 5th and 6th land drops. So my opponent does have Settle the Wreckage up. So we're going to play around another Revitalize and Settle the Wreckage. So we'll go to combat. Go to attackers. So we do need to attack in with 1, 2, 3, and then 1 more. So 4 need to come in. I think we're fine there. We don't need to go anything else. For another Settle the Wreckage plus a Revitalize. And that should be enough. So there is another Settler Wreckage, of course, of course. My opponent has them. Jeez, this is a lot of Settler Wreckage this deck is running. It's so unpredictable with these Jeskai lists, just how many of what type of cards they use. We do keep Lethal pretty far back here. I'm just going to go with the History of Benalia here to create some more pressure. I don't know if it's necessary. My opponent has a lot of cards left in hand. And the ability to dig with the Azcanta. So let's hope this is not a take extra turns. So, okay, so it's going to be the Adanto Vanguard is going to get thrown on top, which dumbs down to Fairy. We have a lot of good cards we can draw into. And this means there's going to be a Deafening Clarion that's coming out here. Cleansing Nova is fine too, so... Still have the card that we can make here, called the 1/1 Vampire. So we thin out our deck completely and then continue to draw lands. I don't really have many lands left in the deck. See if this one... Oh, the little guy did it. The little Adanto, the first fort token takes down. Yep, we're Platinum. Tier 2, right at the little ticky mark here with the deck. So you can see how this deck's a lot better at recovering. That was 2 Settle the Wreckages, 1 Deafening Clarion, and 1... Cleansing Nova they were able to come back from. I think we had to play that perfectly, though. So this is why testing your decks and getting good at them is good. We were able to play around all of those cards quite proficiently. I made the right decisions by playing the cards to flip over the Adanto Vanguard to get that going, or the Adanto, the first fort. Legion's Landing, I guess is what the card's called. And yeah, so far so good. Very, very keepable hand. Again, this is why this arena software is not fair. Look at all these 2 and 3 land hands are so good with aggro decks. They're insanely good because it's. I mean, if I flood, it's not even that terrible because we still want the 4th and 5th for the Heroic Reinforcements in response to Resurgence. We drew our other History of Benalia. That's one thing I've noticed too, is decks like these aggro decks that only have a few higher converted mana cost cards tend to do very well having those in their opening hands. Like, so the Venerate Loxodons. Okay, now we really need to hit that other land. But the History of Benalia is going to put pressure. I don't believe my opponent has a Wildgrowth Walker, so we need to find Finality is going to be rough. Yeah, just a Jadelight Ranger. So we're doing okay. We're all right. Carnage Tyrant will be thrown away, and opponent does get a land off the other one. So we did get a land. So I have a, oh geez. I have some decisions here. No, we just go History of Benalia. And I will attack in with the Jadelight Ranger, because it won't survive an attack next turn anyway, so might as well get it out of the way. And, oh, wow, we have a beautiful turn next turn. Still no Wildgrowth Walker. Chupacabra is annoying, but it's not backbreaking at this point. It's still a card for half of a card. Adanto Vanguard, I don't think I run it out. We just want to start Heroic Reinforcements. And swing in with everything. And we only lose a knight, put my opponent down to an 11. We're still a turn away from getting Fein Finalitied. Opponent used a Ravenous Chupacabra, so it's just a Jadelight Ranger, no Wildgrowth Walker. And Chupacabra will probably stay on top. Oh, okay, I'm surprised in that. Then my opponent ditched it, because it's one of the better cards to try to stabilize. However, I mean, this is going to spell disaster for my opponent. Oh, Legion Landing. That's so tempting to go Legion Landing here. We'll just do another Heroic Reinforcement, though. And that should be all she wrote. They have to block here and here and take 8. Yeah, so we still could get Fein Finality out at... No, -1. Never mind. I miscalculated because there was still another card. So, again, Golgari is one of our tough matchups. And didn't have a terrible hand. Ravenous Chupacabra, double Jadelight Ranger. That's a Seeker. That's pretty good. That's a deck I still want to remake, the Spore Crown Thala deck. I have a lot of fun decks that I want to make, but they're just so... I'm telling you, they're miserable, and it has nothing to do with the decks themselves. It has to do with this BS algorithm, the curve. You have to respect the way that the algorithm is built in this platform. All right, let's play a few more here. Because I have some fun decks. Fun decks that are more Kevin, more Brew, more Rogue. This is Rogue, I would say, because I have yet to see one other person run a response to Resurgence, and you haven't seen the power of that card yet. If we would have drawn a land that turn, I believe it would have been lethal. Yeah, no, we saw this. We saw the power. We saw it against Teferi. Okay, this is kind of a slow hand, the kind of slow, clunky hand. We do get to go on the play, which is better. And we do have lands to cast almost everything here. So, of course, it's going to be a slow, clunky hand versus the Mono Red. But Mono Red didn't have a play turn 1. And let's see if Mono Red thinks that we're on a control deck and shocks us. No, they did not. Okay, this is not Mono Red. Look at that. Chart, of course. This is going to be most likely Drake's. Arclight Phoenix. I have not seen that card in ages. Okay, so I think I'm just going to route the Legion Warboss here to get it going. As it pressurizes, puts the Arclight Phoenix decks in a little more pressure, and this most likely will get lava coiled right here. Chart, of course, again, looking for those Phoenixes. We're going to have a bad turn and a few turns here, but the thing is this deck usually races quite well against the Phoenix base decks. I'm wondering if my opponent's digging for a shock, so needs to go Mountain Shock here. Missed a land again? Are you... Ooh, that's backbreaking. Rip. So opponent kept a 2-lander. It probably gave my opponent the 2-lander, and yeah, that was that. So 2 Crackling Drakes out of the way. Another Legion Warboss, I think we'll go for it. Could have gone for a Ajani. That would also be a card that would have been very acceptable. And we'll go ahead and attack in with everything. And... wonder if my opponent actually does run sweepers. If my opponent does run a sweeper, I'm in trouble. I'm not really in trouble from Arclight Phoenixes. I think my opponent really just has to Lava Coil. Opt. Opt it is. So we don't have to worry about a Fiery Cannonade. And I believe my opponent's going to be swearing at the draws here. Does find the Sulfur Falls. Does find the Shock. See if there's another Shock for the Legion Warboss to bring back a Phoenix. Okay, so this isn't a terrible play by my opponent. So the Phoenix comes back. Phoenix cannot attack in, though, I don't believe. So I was correct. So I've got some decisions to make here. I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to run out Ajani, and we're going to start to pump up Ajani. We'll go ahead and attack with everything. Opponent should block one, I would assume. It's a very renewable resource at this point with the Arclight Phoenix. Got rid of 2 Crackling Drakes, though. If we draw a land, I just might slam Divine Visitation. Yes, okay, so I do want to draw a land here. Oh, we did not draw a land. So I think the play is going to go History of Bananas here. And after the History of Bananas, we'll do the Hunted Witness. And I'm going to put the token actually on the Knight and one of the Gobs. And no attacks. Again, it's going to put my opponent in a weird, awkward position. The double shock was rough to get back the Arclight Phoenix, but we have the response Resurgence, and maybe I should have just attacked in response there, because I don't know if this deck has room for dive downs. But we're in pretty good shape. Like, my opponent has to like decide if Ajani wants to die here. However, I don't think Enigma Drake can really come in. I'll use 2 other Drakes, so I mean, what's the odds of more Drakes? Like Drakes and spells for Arclight Phoenix. We get a History of Benalia token next turn. Another Crackling Drake. Okay, well, I was wrong. My opponent has all the Drakes in the world. And that is a tap land, though. And no Enigma Drake to the face. So this is interesting where we can go here. So the Knight token and the Goblin token. No, we pump here and pump here. All right, so this is the play. we are going to put a counter on here and here. Put those both at 3, and we're going to go for it. So we have the heroic reinforcements. It's coming down, and now we're coming in because this forces blocks. No, my opponent's just going to give it up. Yeah, because they block and they're dead. So we get this one again. My opponent did kind of get stalled out there with lands, and 3 wins versus the top 3 decks in the meta. We'll play until we lose. So this could go on a long time, or this could be our last matchup. But the grinder deck is definitely grinding it out. I highly suggest you do pick up a software called MTG Arena Pro. I've been using it. Unfortunately, it's not syncing up very well versus the 3 computers that I play Arena on. So I have a computer at home that I play Arena on. I have, of course, this is my kind of studio computer that I'm playing it on now. And I also have a laptop that I'll play some Arena games when we're like kind of sort of busy at the store. So someone needs to be at the cash register. But it's not like people are actively, purchasing stuff. They're like browsing, so I'll play some Arena games. At least that's my justification. We'll go ahead and keep this 4-lander and start off with the Sacred Foundry to play tap. This is also an amazing hand with the Adanto Vanguard and Legion Warboss. The only thing that make this hand go sour is if we draw lands. And we did draw land. That is pretty bad news for us. The only thing that could kind of recoup us from this is a Divine Visitation. And then that'd be pretty silly. So like best case scenarios, we draw Divine Visitation. Well, actually History of Benalia first or something. Wild Growth Walker. All right, that was probably the best card for my opponent. That was a good card actually to draw. So we'll go Legion Warboss and put out a Gobby and go ahead and attack him with both of these. But the turn 2 Wild Growth Walker is pretty tough for our deck to beat. Well, we definitely need to find a Divine Visitation. And Divine Visitation doesn't give us an out either because, oh, this is the red-green one. Just going to Lava Coil the Legion Warboss. That's actually one of the better things that could have happened there. Yeah. And a Llanowar Elf. So, opponent's going to attack, huh? Okay, fine. I don't understand that attack. And we did find another land, though. I think that's going to be the deciding land. We needed another relevant card here. And unfortunately, we did not get a relevant card. The problem also is this is more of a dino-based deck. And if they just go and throw out a dinosaur, the Ripjaw Raptor, this turn, I think we just lose. Alpha. Alpha isn't backbreaking at the moment. Especially when my opponent's going to attack in with a 3/3. Well, that's going to do it. I think we do have to just run out heroic reinforcements and swing in with the team. Unfortunately, the Alpha is going to block, yeah. And Wild Growth Walker is just going to go on a 1/1 or a 2/2. And we just flooded out. So you get these hands. So we did keep a 4-lander and drew 3 lands. So odds weren't in our favor here. But, I mean, Divine Visitation would have been very fun that turn to throw out Divine Visitation. And then we get a Legion Warboss 4/4 token that comes into play. I believe, don't they also have Vigilance too? Yeah, they do. So that would have been fun. Okay, so Wild Growth Walker is going to go on the Adanto Vanguard. That gives us an out. I do not know if that was the best scenario. We're just dead to a Ghalta, though. 7. Yeah, Ghalta can come out here. Reduced by 7. And there's 6 mana. So, no Ghalta. Goblin Instigator. So, we just kind of sit tight now. And hope for another heroic intervention. So I wish I would have waited a turn. Would that have done anything, though? Legion Warboss of our opponent, huh? That has to attack in, though, and it just gets eaten by my Legion Warboss. So I guess we're not out of it yet, but I mean we're pretty much out of it. I don't see us coming back from this game. We need a Divine Visitation that doesn't really do much. Ooh, that's a good one. We'll get an Ajani, and Ajani will put a +1 counter on the Adanto Vanguard, and at this point, we probably still want to make our little goblin that could a little bit bigger, and go to attacks, attack in with our Vanguard, which should get a block off of most likely just a Llanowar Elf here, I would assume, maybe a Legion Warboss. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And yes, we'd like to pay the 4 life and have it murder that poor Legion Warboss. So we do have some outs. A response Resurgence wins the game. And what is in my opponent's hand? Not a Galta, because my opponent would have cast the Galta the turn before, because 7/8 reduced and had 5, right? How much is Galta? 12, I believe? And my opponent had that. So dead to a Galta. Well then, I guess you're going to continue to see more games because we luck-sacked out of that. We are 4-0. Well, today is my lucky day for streaming. Well, I guess I'm not streaming, for taping. And we have now won against 4 different archetypes. That was a pretty bad flood. I'm assuming my opponent also flooded. We're going against Dr. Peckers. Awesome. The names that are slipping under the radar. I think this is capable. This is very risky, though. We can flip the Legion's Lanting with our hand so that can cast the History of Bananas here. And then we basically have a deck full of cards we can cast. Okay, so we hit it anyway. We'll go out with the Adanto Vanguard here. Go in with our good old little vampire that could. And next turn we have the double History of Benalia. The other thing I'm kind of worried about is, okay, I'm definitely worried about Selesnya because we can't beat this deck. Let's go ahead and throw out the History of Benalia. Let's not draw another land. That was good, though, to get the Sacred Foundry because we do want a red source. And we'll attack him with the Adanto Vanguard. And this is one of the matchups I think that we're weaker against than traditional white or Boros because they're a little bit quicker and can definitely stop the Boros or the Selesnya draw, but this looks like it might be an Elf Ball Selesnya. Kind of funny going after the History of Benalia. I don't know if that's right. Making this a 4/3 might have been just as good, and our deck just wants to give us, like, History of Benalia is like crazy here. I hate my opponents have these draws. I think I'm going to wait a turn, though. I don't need to pop the Legion's Landing and lose a creature. Is that worth it? Just lose a creature. Lose 1 history to pop it. No, we'll wait a turn. We'll wait a turn. I'm not foreseeing myself using that anyway. So now we've really found a way out of this with the top decks of like a... There are a lot of top decks we can hit. Ajani's are very strong. Opponent has to actually pop some life here. For a Shauna Sis's Legacy, this is a very interesting Selesnya build. Gotta hand it to you, Mr. Dr. Peckers. This is a pretty cool little brew. We did find another land. Womp womp. And a 5/5. That's rough. Let's throw out another History of Benalia. I do not see myself coming out of this, though, unfortunately. And that's the problem with, like, not having removal, not even having Conclave Tribunals, is you leave yourself open to, like, a Trostani here is going to be absolutely backbreaking. A Benelish Marshal is going to be backbreaking. Even a Loxodon would be pretty bad. However, if my opponent taps weird with the Loxodon, like taps all 5 of the creatures, this leaves them open for a huge back play. March of Multitudes is pretty tough here. Like, the best thing we have against March of Multitudes would probably be Response Resurgence, because it gives all our cards first strike, and then it puts my opponent into a weird position. That'd be ideal, a draw next. Either Heroic Reinforcements or a Response Resurgence would be clutch to hit. We don't hit those. We have some acceptable draws. The 4th History of Benalia, of course, would be pretty acceptable. This is gonna take the Benalia that's about ready to pop. No, it's gonna take an Adanto Vanguard. Interesting, because Adanto Vanguard's pretty dead here. Nope, gives us another Sacred Foundry. Womp womp. So, this is an interesting little play. We can attack with all of our knights. One dies. That's probably the right play just to get the Legions landing. Flipped over. It's kind of sixes. Sets us up for a play next turn for a... Oh. Why is my opponent blocking like this? I mean, I'll allow it. I'll absolutely allow this block. Come on, throw the Shauna Assis's Legacy in for good measures. No, I'm just going to block 2. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Keep those blocks. Because Shauna gets dumbed down. Oh, that'll be gorgeous. Oh, that is a great block. Unless my opponent has something they can do? March of Multitudes? What, for 3? That's pretty bad. Alright, March of Multitudes for 2. For 2, yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh no, that keeps Shauna alive. Okay. I get it now. I get it. Let's throw in a Adanto. I'm definitely okay with that though. Got two creatures out of the way. Got a potentially huge March of Multitudes out of the way. That leads me to think there's another one in my opponent's hand. So what I need to hit off the top of this library if we're going to win this game is a Response to Resurgence or a Heroic Reinforcements. I don't think there's another card in the deck that can really get us out of this situation because I do believe there's another March of the Multitudes in my opponent's hand. So Pride of the Conquerors is what I'm thinking. Okay, so Pride of the Conquerors can work here. We're going to block here and block here. And we want to block on more. That loses 2. No, that's fine. I'll take the 6 from... That's fine. Gives us sort of an opening. March of Multitudes is pretty good. Womp womp. That was pretty wompy wompy. With our knights that are going to get dumbed down now. Do I just attack in with everything here? I think I do. Force out some blocks. Yeah, it goes on a 1-1, but I want to get into more damage. So, also dumbs down my opponent's Shauna. Still don't see myself coming out of this with the other land, or the Hunted Witness being one of the weaker cards that we drew into. Decides to just go on the knights, huh? Okay. Well then. We'll allow it. I'd love a Divine Visitation here, too. I think Divine Visitation can get us out of this mess. Trostani was an exceptional draw by my opponent. Whoa, not another land. Okay, so attacking, 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 attacking. Lose 2. Gains 2. No, there's only... Oh, there's lifelinkers galore. Whoa, this is... That Trostani was clutch. Immortal Sun? Immortal Sun being the last card in hand. That's pretty good. Can I beat an Immortal Sun? Not withdrawing lands. Alright, I'm not going to scoop up yet because a Divine Visitation might be able to outpace this Immortal Sun. But that's it. That's the only card left in our deck that can do it. So finally the variance catches up with us and we are getting more lands than our opponent. Heroic Reinforcements I'm going to save. That sounds kind of... Oh, wait. Wait, can I just win here? All right, so I'm feeling that there's a Settle the Wreckage is the last card in my opponent's hand, but we don't care. We're going for it. We are going for it. We're so dead. We're so dead to so many cards. The longer this game goes on, the Mortal Sun's just going to grind us out, though, so there's no point in going anything but lethal here. And I don't even know if this is lethal with 9 on my opponent's end. Watch the Settle the Wreckage come. I see so many of these Selesnya decks packing Settle the Wreckage. If not, this could be a win if my opponent just got land in hand. They can make another Adanto Vanguard, though. And a huge March of Multitudes. Maybe I should have waited one more turn for like a response Resurgence. And then we have response Resurgence. Oh my goodness, that is so game. All right. Well, there you have it. We do lose to Selesnya, which is one of the only matchups that is horrendously bad. I'm not a big fan of Selesnya right now in the meta. I think that it matches very poorly up against most decks. So you don't run into it very often is the good news. We did move up some ranks with the Platinum Tier 2 with this deck. I think it was a very, very solid deck to play in the meta at the moment. It does have a brew feel to it. It's not the same as everyone else. You're gonna come out with cards like Response Resurgence and Divine Visitation that can take people by surprise. It doesn't seem to peter off like the other decks. So all in all, I'm really happy with this deck. Before I end this video series, I'm just going to show a few other decks I've been working on. This is my Here Be Dragons deck. I actually did a whole deck tech of this. I forgot to publish it though. This is the deck that I grinded all the way through Platinum and was one ticking mark away. However, it just started getting some bad matchups for sure, and it's like I constantly change this. If you follow me on MTG Pro, you can go to the history of these decks and look at the changes I've made to these decks. This deck has probably had 100 changes. The things that have stayed the same with this Dragon deck is Niv Mizzet, the Perun 4, Nicol Bolas 4, Sarkhan Fireblood 4, and Dragon Horde 4. Everything else changed around. This is what I'm talking about. Like, you need to run something in the 2-drop slot, like Treasure Map, Discovery Dispersal, Chart a Course, that can dig you out of the bad mana. But the problem is, even if what I end up seeing is I'm using Discoveries early or Chart a Courses early and throwing away relevant cards just to desperately try to hit those, 4th and 5th lands, and then getting the flood of lands. And I'll stabilize, we'll be down to top decking, I'll be versus like a mono red deck or a mono white deck or even a control deck, and then I'll have a string of 7 lands and my opponent will draw gas, because I have way more lands in this deck. I've gone down to 23 lands because I'm so sick of that scenario happening. And then you just end up with some bad scenarios. But anyway, this deck was very, very good for a time period. If you actually check out my MTG Arena Pro profile, you'll see I played this deck to death for we're talking like 30 games a day with this deck when I was grinding up to that mythic rating. And I was one ticky mark more away from it, and then went up against the bad matchup after bad matchup after bad matchup in a row. But Fungal Infection is really good in this deck. Sailor Means and Treasure Map is my latest addition to this deck. We'll have to keep you updated with this on, maybe I'll do it for next week's Tuesday Brewsday, or a follow-up on like Friday or something for this particular deck. Hope you enjoyed the series, though. You can always go and check the deck list in the link in the description below. Last but not least, we still do have our fundraiser going on for my buddy's roof. If this is the first video you've seen about me talking about it, I'll have those links in the description below as well. Long story short, we just have some repairs that have to be made. Needs insurance on it. I mean, not insurance. Needs a roof to have insurance on his business. We're trying to get that going as soon as possible. We're actually going to be adding some of our personal cards here at Gone Rogue Games up in another spreadsheet just to try to get this accelerated. So if you are looking to buy cheap cards now Standard, we'll be adding, and we're going to be adding some masterpieces and stuff like that. And it goes to support a good cause. Again, I'm not about e-begging. I think everyone should get something for their money. And in this case, we're ponying up cards to get my buddy's roof fixed because it is top priority. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and go check out those links for the cards we're selling. We're up to $1,600 out of our 6,000 goal. So we're about, what, is that a third there? Which is awesome, but there's still a long ways to go. Anyway, this has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.